Hi, I'm Adam and welcome back to First Man Photography, where today we look at 3 of the biggest myths in photography and turn them into something more meaningful and valuable. Before we get going today though, this video is sponsored by Lexar. If you need fast, reliable and high quality SD cards, look no further than Lexar. Part of the appeal of photography is it provides and demands this weird mix of practical, theoretical and artistic knowledge. And there's not many other things that do that. I think music's another one that I make a lot of comparisons to on this channel, but it certainly keeps things interesting when we're new to it. What I often find though, especially when learning a new practical skill, is people will often trust and believe the first thing they hear, even if it's wrong. We now also see this play out on social media every day, where everyone seems to be married to their opinion just because they read a misleading headline. And I think that's why myths exist in the first place, because they are a nice little soundbite that's easy to digest, but often miss the details and nuances. And there's loads in photography too, telling us what camera to use, what modes you have to shoot in, and even sometimes what you are even allowed to shoot. So let's dig into a few, but rather than focusing on the technicals, we're going to look at something more fundamental that might actually help you out no matter where your interest in photography lies. Often when you hear people discussing a great photographer, it's only a matter of time before someone says, yeah, they've just got the eye. I think it gets said to protect the ego a little bit, like that person is so good, their pictures are so stunning, that it must be due to their God-given talent that I'm not blessed with. Essentially saying their success is down to total luck. The idea of natural talent is something we, I think, often get backwards. How many times have you seen a successful sports person win something and then in their interview afterwards say, you can achieve anything if you put your mind to it and work hard? Now, this is simply not true. They are an elite athlete at the pinnacle of what they do. By definition, not everyone can do that. I was good at rugby because I'm fast and big. That's not something I ever really had to work hard for either. It was a natural ability that I didn't earn. Essentially, it was total luck. On the other hand, I believe without question, the eye can be taught. And to almost anyone too, partly because the concepts are fairly easy to understand. So any physical prowess you have won't be any help at all. And any intelligence advantage you may possess can easily be overcome by someone willing to outwork you. So what do we need to do in order to make images where people will then describe us as having the eye? I look at it as a 4-step process. 4 things that are simple to understand, but could take a lifetime to master. So firstly is just to slow down. We're not taking snapshots. We're being intentional and crafting and creating artwork. Secondly is to consider exactly what we want to include in our frame. I think mostly we do this naturally, but your images will be immediately improved by placing just as much importance on what to exclude from the frame. One of my favourite examples of this is when we are in the mountains, hiking up a hill. We're usually met with a stunning scene at the top, an awe-inspiring view that we desperately want to just capture everything. So we stick our big wide-angle lens on there and capture the whole lot. But often, by slowing down and spending time up there, we can eventually begin to understand which parts of that scene are dominating our attention. Because, in all honesty, it's probably not the rock immediately under your feet. By choosing to attach a longer lens, we're immediately forced into thinking which parts of this scene are we going to exclude. And it's exciting, I think, because it becomes obvious that it's your interpretation, it's your story. And the viewer of the final image doesn't need to see what's just to the left or the right of frame, because it will spark their imagination to fill in the world around your image. If you want to take this a step further, you can also read up on the artistic principles. Thirdly is to learn and apply the compositional rules. Now, let's not get caught up in the language here. We can call them guidelines if you prefer, but the fact is they just work. They're also incredibly exciting, I think, when you start digging into things like the golden ratio and the golden spiral, and they're linked to the Fibonacci sequence. And amazingly, how often that can then be observed in nature. If you sign up for a free trial to the Raw Room, you can watch my landscape photography masterclass where I talk about this in much more detail and show you how we can actually apply them to our images. I'll put a link down below for you to check that out. Then the fourth one is to learn about the artistic elements. This is where we deal with shape and form and start thinking about how colours work together, how lines can guide us through an image, how values can control attention, and how space and texture can be used to add impact. And that leads us nicely on to the next one. One of the things that frustrates me deeply is when people say that photography is easy, because I think ultimately this undermines it as the intricate and interesting art form that we all know and love. I prefer to compare it to football or soccer for our American friends, and there is a reason they call this the beautiful game. You give a child a ball anywhere in the world and they can start kicking it against the wall and have a good time. It's simple and it's beautiful. But then to play in the Premiership requires an extraordinary level of commitment, determination, skill, hard work, and some luck. Since the digital era of photography has come about, I think it's now something similar. Nearly everyone has a phone, so the barrier to entry is now very, very small. But if we believe it's easy, then by definition, everyone is immediately brilliant at it with almost no effort. And I hope we can all agree this is not the case. One way to look at this is by considering time. How many hours have you put into your photography? Do you think you would be better if you'd put 3x more time in? It's also worth looking at any single one of our images. It may have taken only a fraction of a second to capture, but how many hours actually went into producing that thing? Let's look at one of mine and as an example that you saw me capture a couple of weeks ago. Here's the image. I've printed it out, and the feedback you all gave was amazing. Now, this trip took about 6 hours to plan. It took me 3 hours to drive there, 1 hour to climb the hill, 3 hours slowing down and taking it all in, about 30 minutes composing and capturing the frame in the best light, 4 hours to get down and get back home, then about 1 hour editing and preparing the print. So in total, that's about 18.5 hours. But what I haven't included is the couple of years I waited to get the right conditions and all the accumulated photography experience that led to that point. So I'm happy to say that this is now this week's Continuum image. It's called The Watcher. So head to the link down below for your chance to pick up one of 5 of these prints before they are gone forever. So despite the camera technology we now have, I think photography can easily be compared to other forms of art, and I don't think it always gets the credit that it deserves. And it's down to us to promote it, discuss it, and share its virtues, because if we don't, no one else will, and we risk it going away. Before we look at the next one, as you know, this video is sponsored by Lexar. Now, I've been using Lexar cards for many years, and they have literally never let me down, even when I've mistreated them, dropped them in the water, bashed them around, and things like that. I particularly like this Lexar CF Express card. This is, without doubt, the best card that I've ever used. It is very, very fast for your more modern high-end cameras like the Canon R5. 1700 megabytes per second read speed and 1000 megabytes per second write speed. It's just so fast. And coupled with the Lexar Professional CF Express card reader, you are just going to get solid and fast transfer speeds with this, whether you're in the studio, in your office at home, or out in the field. So go to the link down below and check out Lexar and give them some love for sponsoring this channel. When I look at the analytics of this channel, it indicates that only 10% of my viewers are female and only 18% are under the age of 25. Now, I know this is similar for many other photography channels, and I think it's a very strong indicator of the fact that many people have the impression that photography is boring. And to be fair, it's understandable at times after you've listened to enough grumpy f***ers talk through their nose about hyperfocal distance and the dangers of parallax shift. The technical aspects of photography get very boring very quickly, and even once we've established that I shoot Canon and you shoot Sony, the conversation about cameras also runs dry too. But we all know that photography is not boring. However, if we don't move the conversation and the industry away from the gear towards the stories, towards us as the photographers, we're going to have a real problem on our hands. I touched on this briefly in the last video, but imagine a grandmaster chess player. Even if you're the best in the world, you know there is a computer out there that can beat you every single time. I don't think people are really prepared for what AI is going to be capable of, but there is simply no doubt we are going to get to the point when artistic work created by AI is going to be indistinguishable from that created by a person. Even in the short term, I think cameras will probably help us to compose an image at the scene, telling us to pan up a bit or move right or left a touch. It's pretty scary, and I'm fairly confident it will drain the money out of commercial photography. But I'm optimistic that there will always be a place for creative photography. Images that we want to hang on our wall because they mean something to us. They come with a story. They represent something. And even with a landscape image, there is a human connection. Now, creating this kind of photograph is easier said than done, and it might not always be immediately obvious either when we've done it, because we can't always know exactly what's going to resonate, both with ourselves and with other people. My father-in-law has been one of the biggest supporters of this channel, and a number of years ago he asked me what will happen when I run out of things to talk about. It was a good question that made me think quite a bit, actually, and the answer is that I will never run out, because photography is about life and capturing its moments. The way to stay engaged with photography, I think, and make your own work interesting is to develop a philosophy towards how we create our images. And the beauty of this is that every one will be different. If that sounds a bit highfalutin though, one definition of philosophy is a theory or attitude that acts as a guiding principle for behavior. So, if your only reason for creating an image is to make money, then it's not going to be that interesting and won't resonate. And this is essentially the only thing that AI will be doing, creating these shortcuts by making meaningless images for advertising and marketing. So by developing even a simple philosophy, pouring your heart and soul into an image and being intentional, we can keep this story alive. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to know where my photography philosophy came from, it was born as a police officer on the streets of London, dealing with some rather crazy shit, and that's all detailed in my book, Illumination, which I would be very grateful if you checked out via the link down below. But if you don't want to do that, just give the video a like, subscribe, and I'll see you on another one very, very soon.